Manhood, brought to you in part by Lucozade and Solomon Bespoke.
This is Manhood. Thank you for staying with us, where we always aim to be better as brothers. And I think aim we're doing right by now, and they say if you aim at nothing, you'll win every single time. But we aim to be better as brothers, and I think so far we are at 100, because I consider everyone that passes through the show, everyone that reaches out, to simply be a brother, and I try to be better with everyone that we indeed meet. Today's topic, yes, fellas, need for speed. And also rivalry, but rivalry in a positive way. Competitive rivalries, positive rivalries that are one that takes persons forward and adds value to anything that you're doing. So without further delay, to my right, Johanse Ayodike, Behavior Change Consultant. To his right, if you're in the car world, if you're in the motorsport world, you definitely know these two athletes I'm going to introduce. We have Devon Bartholomew, drifter, but so many other hats. So drifter, contractor, work-life balance at its best. And to his right, Roger Hutcheon, GMMB Express, GM, but also drifter, athlete. And I'm giving you guys your kudos because you are indeed athletes. To do what you do and do it at the level of which you do it certainly puts you in that athlete category with regards to training, dedication, skill set, and mentors, because a lot of people, motorsport is huge in Trinidad and Tobago. So the reason there are many reasons I'm really happy that you guys are here today. One, as a fan, having been to some of these events and seeing what happens, having put my 9-year-old in this guy's car and saying, hey, with the wifey watching in the stands and going, okay, well, am I going to go home tonight? Because if he doesn't go home, I'm not going home either, right? So there's that level.
Better not go home.
Better not go home, So it's amazing what you guys do. So let's just talk about drifting for a bit before we go into men's need for speed, men's adrenaline rush, and also that work-life balance and the healthy rivalry that you guys have and why that is a good thing as opposed to, say, gang violence and all these other things. Why this type of rivalry is a good one to have. So let's talk drifting. I know we could talk for hours on it, but we have a certain timing on the show. I would say you're off the mark like a bullet, and it's almost like controlled chaos.
It is.
Yeah, it is. That's a pretty good definition. So for me, it is the art of control. When it looks like it's out of control, right? So when you look at all the other disciplines, it's car control. Drag racing is to make sure you go straight. Circuit racing, likewise. Drifting is the only one where we upset the apple cart and throw everything out and say, hey, this car is supposed to be here, but in an opposite direction. So that, for me, is a dynamic that, one, encouraged me to look at drifting as a career path. From a sporting perspective, because it was that one thing that you could not throw money behind. You had to have the skill.
Roger, for those who don't know, what exactly is drifting?
So drifting is the art of putting a car, rear-wheel drive car in most instances, sideways, right? But controlling it throughout the slide.
But I find you saying it, I feel right now you have on your GM voice.
Right? I
want to get on into the roots of this thing, because the way you said it so casually and politely about rear-wheel drive, putting it sideways, this thing is going at a certain speed.
It is.
Skating around corners.
It is.
It's a dance.
Yeah, it's a dance. It is a dance.
That's exactly right.
And where you think we should be stopping is where we go in. So for me, it's a whole burst of adrenaline where you are saying apply brakes and we putting it sideways. So there's a whole different dynamic. It normally throws the sensory of a human off in the first instance and then puts you into a place of euphoria because you're saying this is likewise on the back of a bird, right? Because it's just darting all around, it taking you from side to side, but it keeping you safe at the same point in time.
Okay.
I still feel that song in Team Devon.
It is team because I literally think of it as it's guiding something. No, I'm not saying it's controlling because you have to have grip to have control, and we don't deal with grip. Right? Well,
That's
to an
it's like,
extent.
it's like an
To an extent.
oxymoron, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, this is what you should have,
Yeah.
but you are controlling with the skill
Yeah.
a car that is which you're pretty much setting up to defy all of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a guided missile, basically. And we're just guiding it and saying, oh boy, we want to go there. I hope it go there, you know.
And if not, you have the power. So each time you're sending it out of control, you're now trying to power out of that through whether it be breaking the diff?
Breaking traction.
Traction.
Yeah, right. But
Right. I tried the song like
That's,
that. You know what I mean? For a moment there, I was like, hey, would I get away with this?
Yeah. No, you're close.
Right.
No, but Devon, I think you're being modest when you say it's out of control, no, because I mean you all have control because even though you say the car going,
Control yourself and speak in the mic now. Good.
even though you're saying that the car out of control and you're putting it where it's not supposed to, you all still have a degree of control over the chaos.
Right.
Yes.
And that comes with experience.
Right. But it's the appearance, right? The perception.
Mm-hmm.
So the perception of anybody seeing it for the first time will say, yo, them is hooligans, get them out from here.
Which
That-
is
yeah.
what Roger said, which is correct for so many years when we started.
Yeah. It started as a wild man thing, right? Because nobody understood the dynamic or what the discipline was. It started in Japan and it was on the mountain roads in Japan and the whole 9 yards, right? And it was kind of outlawed and then it came to the tracks and then, you know, it was a skill set and then it kind of started to spread all over the world. And when it was introduced into Trinidad, of course, Dev, Kerry, were some of the initial ones that took up that challenge and said, hey, let me try this thing and see if it works. For me, when it started to go in the public domain, it was perceived. So the adventure seekers was like, yeah, boy, that's real cool. And everybody was like, damn, is wild, man.
Yeah.
Because when you like you said, you've seen it elsewhere, and you say, as men, need for speed, as we're talking about it here, adrenaline junkies,
Right.
extreme sports fanatics, you try something and you get a thrill out of it.
Right.
But to the average person, getting a punctured tire or on a wet road or a slick, and you pick up a skid, is not generally something that 99 people know how to control. And even within, you know, what was then the speed limit at 80,
Right.
people think, oh, I'm going slow, but they don't understand. You get a punctured tire, anything happens at 80 or between, I would say between 50 and 80, and we talk about K here, not miles, you can't control that car, the average person.
Yeah.
Right.
And here it is, you're going in excess of those speeds with tires that have no grip. And if you ever see them inside the car, it's like, you know, it's,
Well,
it's total control.
If you think we look subtle with that, we have a friend who also used to drift with us called Keon Reed. He looked like he used to sit on the back seat and just rock back.
He has a real, like, kind of laid back, but you see him from the inside and you see the car from the outside, and it's two different things, right? So you do, and the driving style kind of dictates that, right? So I am more of the aggressive type driver. Dev is, for me,
No
yeah, Dev is more calculated, right? So
Right.
he's very precise. He has very excellent
Excellent.
car control, and he understands car dynamics really well.
And you have an associate's degree. In
in
Yeah.
engineering. Yeah.
But Keon was the one where just turn it from the side, and everybody was, you could tell the style, right? So you could tell Keon was driving somebody else's car. You
Right.
could tell Devon drives somebody else's car. You could tell when I jump in as well too. So yeah.
And what about within that? I mean, we're going to talk more about it, you know, later on. But the rivalry is clearly a healthy one in the motorsport fraternity. I mean, when it comes to money and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, you're not going in there for a cash pot of.
You're right.
say,
Yeah.
you're not-
Motorsport doesn't pay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's be real. It's
Yeah.
all about bragging rights.
Yeah, it is. And it's something that resonates with whether it be male or female, something that you want to do, right? If you're getting into it to say, well, here's what I want to make this a business and make money instantly, then your
In the wrong
ROI is real further down the road. But if you're doing it for passion, then definitely, you're on the right track to start with.
So do you think that motorsport, with people seeing even interviews like this or discussions like this and people coming out and see it, I mean, it's tens of thousands of people, the motorsport fraternity or industry, the fan base in Trinidad is really, really massive. And the various, even on the social media platforms, a lot of people gravitate it. And if you've been, it's very, very impressive. And when I say impressive, Devon and Roger, I would say, even if you look at outside of Trinidad and Tobago, their levels are matching that. But as we discussed, persons on the outside are doing it as a profession.
Yes.
Right.
So their seat time is more. Of course, the sponsorship, etc. Whereas you guys are doing this for the most part as a hobby, but there's still a work-life balance because the training, skill set, knowledge base, all of that still has to be on par. You still
Correct.
have to use the
Right.
same the same types
Yes.
of the
Yes.
cars, the skill set, regardless. And so, do you think that that fans, enthusiasts looking on, have become safer or more aware watching you, or you just think it just creates more wildness, more madness? Because everybody thinks I could be a Devon or Roger when I leave this track.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I mean, for me, I see it in two ways, right? So our aim was always to motivate, right? So we do have people when we started, 10, 15 years ago, that are now older and they follow in the path, right? So they bought a car, they get into it, and they started to compete on a serious level, right? And they're taking it serious, they understand the responsibility. But our goal from the start was to make sure that it elevates into something that we could be proud of. So taking it seriously, from safety to timeliness to all of those things, and even rivalry, right? Because some of the sports could have bitter rivalries and they don't augur well for our culture. So one of the things that we want to make sure and do is that if we are investing time into somebody junior, a fan, spectator, or another driver, it is for them to elevate. So that for me is where, kind of the focal point was.
So when you all say wildness and thing, you could probably chime in here. When you all say wildness and you start off this thing, is there some element? Because like I come from a rally background as well with Ainsley Locha, and we raced in Trinidad and Tobago at the highest level and competed, even regionally at the highest level. And people would always ask, is there something apart from being an adrenaline junkie, an extreme sports nut? Is there somewhere inside of there that there's a death wish, or that there's something that doesn't tap in to the prefrontal cortex or your your amygdala or whatever you call it? Is there something that's not firing there that you simply have to get that thrill? What would you say?
They'll take the lead.
That would use one madman I'm talking about. My son went in there and it was like a rocket, but by the second run he took him
Devon,
on.
tell him you're not madness, right? It's not madness.
No.
It's not total because my son went in the car with him.
Yeah,
Unless I'm mad.
There are a few underlying, I won't say issues, but there are a few underlying things. So, for example, if you come and you say, okay, so you send your son, right? My thing is, as I'm now looking at myself as Uncle Devon, right? And what does Uncle Devon want to do? Uncle Devon wants to provide a safe and enjoyable environment to encourage this youth to decide when he's going down the road, Daddy, I want Supra. Daddy, I want Drift. That's what I try to encourage, right?
Right. But when it's not Uncle Devon?
When it's not Uncle Devon, for example, you or Johanse or anybody who wants to sit there, I'm just trying to scare the out of you, right? Because it's fun.
Yeah.
Right? But I
Crazy.
think...
No, you're not crazy.
I think,
I'll explain it after.
I think what's happened is that we, not by design, but I think we try to push the envelope for ourselves. how far can we go?
By design. He was ready first time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
How far can we go? How far can we push it? Right? How fast can we go? Right? Is there the limit? And then when we reach the limit, can we go beyond the limit? What we need to go beyond the limit? And it's not because we can do it by ourselves. We have no problem going to an empty area and doing it. Right? The extra fun comes in. The extra fun comes in when you now pushing that limit and you look back and he's right there doing the exact same nutty thing. Right? That's it. And then when you're done and you see the footage and you go back and it all smiles, all laughter. Right? And
but in that smile, and you want to say, oh, you chime, in that smile and laughter, Roger, Devon, there's a certain amount of cynicism, there's a certain amount of, what the boy, that type of thing. There's something in there that the exhilaration, the adrenaline, an extreme adrenaline of that is euphoric. Because yes, in certain cases on the track, you might be, almost with the tires, and you know that there's a safety. But let's face it, the environment isn't always one like that, and you are pushing the envelope with regards to safety.
Right.
Because to get to that skill set, there's injuries that would have happened, there's near misses, and people forget, lest you forget, that this, as much as it's fun and you're looking at it from the bleachers or anything, it is something that can be fatal.
yes, very much so.
So, I mean, as Devon was talking, let me put you through my mind in terms of our run, right? So I plan. So I just want to take a step back and say that I pick my poison and I know what I'm good at, right? Bikes, I love. I have partners that, do 8 seconds on a bike. That's just not for me. I pick my poison, which is drifting or anything car-related. And I will push the limit in that boundary as much as I humanly can.
Right.
From a perception of my mind, when I get involved, I plan. So before sims and all those kind of things, I would run the course in my mind. But when I leave the blocks, I can't remember anything until the end, until I think about it. For some strange reason, I know exactly what I'm doing, when I'm supposed to do it, but I don't review it at that point in time. I make adjustments, and then when I come out on the other side, so it's a weird thing.
Muscle memory.
Well, it's muscle memory.
From repetition.
Correct, right? But what I'm saying is I don't consciously review what I'm doing while I'm doing it. I have a plan, I execute, it happens, I get through with it, and I may reflect on it afterwards.
But just touch, good. Remind me about that 8 seconds thing you talk about.
So both you and Robert spoke about euphoria, right? Now, would you say, and you don't have to answer, it's a rhetorical question, whether euphoria is a good thing or a bad thing. Right. Most times it's a good thing. Yes. Sometimes people say what you do that lead to the euphoria, sometimes quote unquote, may be bad. But what we call euphoria really is wholeness.
Right.
Right? And I think everybody looking for some degree of wholeness.
Yes.
Right? And everybody find wholeness in a different way. Now you may ask, what is wholeness? We hear wholeness all the time, going in the bush, meditating. Some people take drugs,
so we
chemicals,
something.
etc. Right. So what euphoria does, it makes us whole. Now what makes us whole is when we completely go through the entire reward system in our brain. So we always hear about dopamine, right? But that's just one aspect of the entire reward system. I can't remember how many segments, but let's just say there's 5, right? And you started it. I'm sure you all heard about executive function before, right? You all ever heard about that term? Executive function is what we do every day. Executive function simply is I come up with a goal or a thought, I start doing it, I execute it, and I finish it.
Right.
That may sound simple, but I have plenty of people who start things and don't finish it.
Gotcha.
Right? So whenever, no matter how long it is or short, we start it, so I'm going with exactly what you said. I plan it in my mind, right? So that means I see it before the Sims, right? Because Sims actually is a handicap to us humans, even though we may think it's an advancement. But you plan it in your mind. So, and I know I could relate it to all men and anything that you're doing. You plan it in your mind. You simulate it as much as possible. Sometimes you practice, you break your foot sometimes, you lose some money sometimes in investment, wherever it is. But you keep going at it. So we start in the first reward system. So I see it there. I get a reward because I imagine it.
Right.
Then I put things in place, I try it. Something in work, I refine it. Next reward system. And then we keep moving along. So then when you execute it and you do it enough times, so you say muscle memory, but what it is connections that we form in our brain that was not there before.
Gotcha.
That is why, and the feeling that we get when we form that new skill is an amazing feeling, right? That's why men in general just push themselves to do whatever it is. Even men who does, I could drink more than you, right? because it's the feeling of I plan it, I plan it in my mind and I execute it, right? So understanding that process. So when we go through the entire reward system, what we get is a feeling of wholeness.
Yeah.
So in there, we need to go to a break. As I mentioned about the 8 seconds, most people who go through a lot of these things, whether it be paratroopers, whether it be paragliders, skydivers, people in these levels of extreme motorsport, they always say that, you don't want to die without living, without truly living.
Right.
But in that, so some people are willing to take that, to have that feeling, and even if it may result in death, because you don't want to result in paralysis, because then but even if it results in death, you want to be able to feel what that's like at the edge of what most people will never know about and never feel. But again, as you said, and I agree with you with Sim will almost, in certain ways, it will help you hone your craft, but it's also a glass ceiling to what maybe you may do, and then realize it's like people who believe in, what's it called, flat earthers. If you don't go beyond what is seen as that is the limit, then we would never have even drifters and so on. No, because you'll think, well, that's all the car is set up to do. Because if you read when that car comes from the shop, because there's no drifting car per se. It's not like Skyline or anything that's developed for certain levels of speed.
Right.
Chances are you'd have never done what you're doing, you're doing now. But we're gonna take a short break. I want to come back to about that 8 second man, and more about rivalry and why we have this need for speed, fellas.
Yo, welcome back to Manhood, and we are talking about Need for Speed and competitive rivalry in the automotive world. So,
Right. And how did you get into it?
I was born into it. I mean, I can't remember my dad doing like little servicing on, we had an old Hilux, TG 1220. I don't even know where that is now. But he used to tinker with it, and he also had a Mini a long time ago and used to go Wallerfield. I wasn't part of that. That was pre-me. But as time went along, he was fixing some engines, always revving it out, adjusting carburetor. And I was always there. So the noise, tires squealing when you checking brakes, that's my thing. Okay. So I had it I basically had it from birth.
So it was in the blood. Your father, you say your father did it before, and then you grew up seeing it.
Not to that extent, but just the little tire and the gas and the noise and and then it was like anything with an engine. So he tried to get me into sailing. That didn't work because sailing had no engine.
Point.
Our bomb, it's small. Ain't doing nothing. You need to win.
Yeah. So it came down to engine, and then, well, cars was just, I had a soft spot for cars. I had like multiple little matchbox cars walking around. I remember my mom and dad used to come with stories about me being 4 years old in New York, and I have a lunch bag, and the lunch bag is just toy cars.
So the common thing here clearly is love for cars.
Yeah.
The first thing you must have is a passion for cars in itself. You're enthusiastic, your take on
But how you get to there is sometimes different. Like Devon's story is much different from mine.
And what's your story?
So my initial drive towards horsepower was actually a literal horse. I used to like horse racing. So my mom worked there. A lot of the family members were into horse racing, and I actually wanted to be a jockey. 6 foot, well, almost 6 foot. That would not work out, right? Yeah. So at that point in time, there was love and the passion, and then when I got into my teens, of course, you went to your first car show, and you saw the music and the sound and the paint and everything, which was attractive. But there was something that, when you saw it, because at that point I was in Center Point or Mid-Center in Shogunas, and they had a guy called Larry, Yellow Fever, and he was just doing donuts with his shamat, right? And the sound, so people find that irritating, so they'll cover their ears. But the sound of the engine, which was a 6-cylinder, L28, for me, that's music. That for me is when it changed, right? Because you started to get attracted to characteristics of cars that resonate with you. So song, look, feel, color, wheel design of car. Those are the things that started to attract, because I could have been attracted to audio, decibels, this, that, or paint, or whatever the case may be, but my attraction came through that. So it was evolving when I still have a passion for horses. I still love them, but it evolved into this true horsepower.
So is any part of you guys get into it have anything to do with girls?
No.
Like, you're looking at it and saying, hey, look, everybody liking how that person does that. And girls sometimes like a bad boy.
Nah, that's
and like you say, the wild.
That's actually counterproductive.
Because so when did you realize then, guys, and whoever want to go first, when did you realize that you were not just clearly realize you love the sport, you love cars, but when did you realize when you were good at it? Because anybody could try anything. Anybody could try to run, but then there could only be one Usain Bolt. When did you realize that, hey, I'm good at this and I can now work, I want to invest, I want to put in, because like you said, the ROI, the return on investment of investment is nothing apart from bragging rights. So when do you say, hey, I know that I have a certain skill set here? Who was it that said that? I have a certain list of skills. Liam Neeson in the movie.
Yeah.
So, when did you realize that you had that?
Good question. For me, I've always been the one to say, hey, can I do it better, right? So it's very few times that I sit back and say, damn, you're a real good boy. Like I watch some of the videos now because it's on Instagram and say, wait, you could really drive, right? But
you see it though. I mean, it's all right.
But that has to be a moment, right? But all the other moments have been reevaluating how you could do it better. So the pursuit of perfection, perfecting the craft, even if I lose to Devon, I'm going back and fix that drive to come back and deal with him. That for me is where my focal point was. So to rip yourself away and say, yeah, that damn good, and you kind of toot your own horn, I think that's, well, I could be wrong, but that wasn't something that we shared, right? We just going on to the next task. And I don't
you mightn't say it, but there is still something about where you have to give yourself self-love. And then there comes a point that you have to realize that not just looking at the videos, not just saying, there's that saying 10,000 Frenchmen can't be wrong. There comes a level and a standard that it's not just a case of I am better than him, I am good. And I'm not just, I'm better because these people are bad.
Right.
And there must be a driving force of self-praise, not cockiness or arrogance, but understanding, because, like you said, you're putting in the work.
Yeah. So for me, it's about me. I get your point, and you're correct. But in my mind, it was not that I was terrible or bad, and I need to make myself better. But the self-love came in making sure that you kept at the top of your game. You always refined yourself because there's always a better version of you, in my view.
And when you realize you were, I'm telling you, when you realize you were real good at it.
Well, to be honest, I think something had to be wrong with us, because it never came across like that. It came across in bouts of maybe you were validated by your feelings were validated by seeing somebody in the stands cheering, and then you look back on the footage and say, well.
And you're in Trinidad, right? Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they in the stands cheering, Trini is easy, would lick you up if you're doing.
Exactly.
So you
exactly.
gotta be doing something real good.
But,
Yeah.
and the thing is, I remember in some of the earlier shows, we do maneuvers, and we in the car, we're not hearing anything, right? When you come out of the car, you really see people moving. But it's later on, you might see footage or hear somebody come and say, hey, that whole section was bawling out your name, right? And then you'll
I
be
get
like,
you.
serious? And
Yeah.
But the driving force was never, yeah, boy. See that I'd have gone bust that dress. It was never like that.
But you see, what you're saying there, and this is what I've noticed, and when I say it, I'm sure you all will agree, right? When people, and this is not only a man thing, right? When people really love something, it's only about getting better,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes everybody in awe, but you think you still didn't do good enough,
Correct.
right? And I first noticed it with artists, right? I would go to the art exhibit and it's wonderful pieces, and the artist will say, I ain't even finished that, That you find that looking good, but
Yeah.
there's a work of art. And in a previous episode, when we were talking about imposter syndrome, and we had various men who good in their craft, right? And we looking at them in awe, but they're like, I could do something better.
Right.
And I think that's an important part of it, because even as we leading up to the part about the rivalry, right? Before even becoming a rival, you have to want to do better. And
Yes.
not necessarily, as you indicate, for the girls, yes, that might come, or the fame, those things would come, right? But if a man who really passionate about what he's doing will just do it to be better. And even when he reach the heights, I call it the heights, you will think, nah, boy, something I could still do better than
Yeah.
that.
Well, and that's they say if you chase girls, you'll have no money. But if you chase money, you'll have girls, right? Well, just disclaimer, right? I just say what I saw, right? There's a meme.
If you chase
But-
cars, you don't get money, no girls.
But what Johan was saying, I could agree with in full support, because it is in your quest for betterment
Mastery.
and mastery is why you would never be. I mean, most people say under like Maslow's theory, there's self-actualization, full fulfillment of self-actualization is never really attained, because you always want to be better, and you don't put a glass ceiling on yourselves, because that's even where the rivalry comes in. Because when you look back at the video, you're saying, what could I have done better almost immediately? And where the rivalry also now comes in is that the respect that you all have for one another in terms of your craft now makes you be able to bench off of him, and Devon bench off of you.
Right. But I wanted to put something into the mix for opinion, right? So not in all cases, but in some cases I have seen where when you reach that pinnacle and you call yourself great, you tend to take a defensive road because you're defending this greatness, right? And the defense could be you become more competitive, but normally is to tell the other person they versus if I'm on the trajectory for growth, I'm offensive and I'm looking to maneuver to go up. I'm not really too concerned about who's behind me on the side of me because I'm trying to play going forward. So that's how I see it, and that's why I never put it at an end game to say, well, you're that good because I will now have to defend that position.
Right.
Yeah.
But when I talk about great, I didn't say greatest, huh?
No, I agree. I
Right?
get you.
Great in simply meaning that you've achieved a level of skill that is no longer considered average. It's no longer considered, oh, he's good at that. He's actually great at that by that own work that you've put in. I mean, like you said, you've done a degree in it. You constantly look back and try to develop and get better and better and master your craft. So there comes a level where you do tip and you become great in the sport, but not the greatest, because there's always room for improvement,
Yeah.
and there's always somebody else coming up. And that's what I want to talk a bit about now more, the importance of healthy rivalry. And in that rivalry, respect. And I remember you telling me before we started filming that even in the lead up to competition, at meetings, you're one of the few, both of you are one of the few persons that actually share your game plan.
Yeah, so we'll discuss it, and even we have been to the point where drivers have been, I guess, confused with the course, and we will share it at that point in time, because I still think you have to do it, right? I could tell you how I do it, but the actual drive and the dynamics and the physics behind it is a whole different story. So I could tell you how I drift, and I put you in the car, and then you end up in a dream. That's a whole different story. So for me, I didn't have a problem with that. Now, mind you, as you get more evolved into this drifting culture and competitiveness, there would be trade secrets that you'll hold for yourself, either responsiveness of car setup, depending on who wants to hold it to themselves. But for all intent and purposes, it was one of them, because Devon and I could have only done so much for ourselves in terms of beating one another up over and over and then hug up after, right? But we needed to elevate everybody else. So like Nicholas Hutcheon, which is also a drift champion, in his development, he would come ask questions and we'll feed it. Nari, all of those guys that, you now turn into the uncle that you're giving advice, right? Now they have the ability to come back and beat you. But that's all fair,
Healthy,
because
right.
I want to make sure that if you beat me, I have the opportunity to come back and do it to you again. That for me is where it is. It has no malice.
You're
but
pushing each other.
Correct. And if we don't, and I take the other point where I'm at the top of the totem pole or close to, I have to keep everybody down, then I would want to create that separation either by saying they're not good or creating some sort of separation. That's not how I
But
see
they say a rising tide raises all ships.
Yes.
And if you are imparting your knowledge as someone would have done with you, and even if they didn't do it with you, you don't want to be,
That
you don't want to put somebody else through that.
Correct.
It's like, well, no, I might not have had the privilege to have that, but if I can now impart this knowledge on you, it means that the sport in itself benefits, and
Yes.
Trinidad and Tobago then benefits, because we may then have people who can now financially may decide, hey, you know what, like John Powell's son, who's out there racing, who can say, hey, financially, I'm going to invest in you, and he's out there karting now, and you can say, oh, look, we have a fellow regional brother who's out there showcasing, representing for the Caribbean.
But to your point, so I think that discipline and the development are doing better, because when we started, there wasn't any avenue for drifting when we started. Devon and I started with drag and wine, which is a kind of a dexterity, is equivalent to what they call grid canna now. We started in there because we could have slid around the barrels and maneuvered, and we started to go through that course of, getting licks, then getting a little better, second, third place, winning. And we kept a discipline where, even as, in our 20s, we had a sponsor, which was, Total. They came on board as an oil sponsor and gave that sponsorship. But because we maintained a particular discipline, they understood from looking at us from outside that our trajectory was up. And we weren't just doing it for the gal or the flams right now. We had a
Bus
bigger
roads,
picture.
according to-
Yeah, we had a bigger plan in place. And for me, if you're getting into motorsport for yourself, right, to really push the limits of what you can do as a human being, that plan needs to be there, right? If it is just to push the limits to look good to get a girl, well, sorry. Yeah.
Just before you say it, Devon, I'm just thinking, bringing it into Formula One in motorsport. When you look at, their party, there's always a party guy, but if you look at one of the best drivers in the world, Max Verstappen, he's removed from all of that. His focus is on getting ready for being in that car and driving.
Right.
There's no bells and whistles. There's no excitement about him. His focus is on, I need to drive this machine and do what it takes to be able to do this. Mind, body, spirit, environment, the lot of it.
But
I get that from you guys.
I do see one of the reasons Max excels so much, but in terms of followers, because people see themselves not as the party guy. They see themselves not as they see themselves wanting to put in the work, the
An
quiet
athlete.
time, and to be if they to be a when need be. They want not answer any questions. They want to just do what they come to do, and because Max is that way, they have, hey, I'm just like him. So if I'm just like him in that aspect, I can also be as great as he is. Right? They're not looking at it and being like, oh, for example, Lewis. Lewis, no, everybody loves Lewis. Because Lewis is all encompassing. He's into fashion, he's into rap, he's into whatever, right? He's into pulling up the small man. Not everybody has the patience and the wherewithal to have to be constantly dealing with that. So I do believe that is all where you identify yourself.
Well, the thing is, I'd say, I think I could say that. I think that's most men, right? Most men just want to do what they want to do now. Wherever it is, it don't matter where your profession is.
Yeah.
It don't really matter. What I like to do, I just want to do that. Sometimes I don't even want to hear no talk. I don't want to hear no nothing.
Right.
I just want to reach,
Yeah,
do my
the
thing,
thing,
do it
yeah.
how I want to do it, and then leave.
Right.
So,
But then how do you elevate? Is it that you find a lot of people elevate closer to the twilight of their career? Now you're like, how do I now give back? What's my legacy?
Yeah, I would say this. If we backtrack a little bit, I think and think about, in our aspect, what we do is act on a stage, right? And the people, the spectators, are the patrons. The better our show is that we could put on, is the more people will want to see that kind of show, right? I'll invest into that kind of show. So it can't just be the two of us. It has to be everyone, right?
But let me give you a scenario. If it was you had a sponsor that took care of all of that, would you still be amenable and open to the lines of people that go, I could ride with you, I could get a ride?
Yeah.
Here now, as funny as you say that,
Does it not?
it doesn't bother. It doesn't bother.
For me, it doesn't, right? So I would say that for me, I agree with Johan say, I like to be, when I'm competing, in my zone, right? I kind of zone out and just focus or zone in and focus on what I need to do. But consciously, I know there's some little boy or some teenager that is looking at me and wants to be encouraged, either by acknowledgement, either by a quick conversation. And for me, that's the responsibility, because I think when we look at professionalism, being an athlete, we just think it's the competing level, but it has the responsibility of also caring for others, right? So I have to want to, like, for instance, in public office, you can't say what you want to say in public office as you would in your private house, right? Athletes, for me, are the same thing.
Because it's in Parliament.
Well, yeah, we see how that goes, right?
different story.
But for all intents and purposes, I want to make sure that if I take the mantle of being an athlete, that I understand that there's a developmental, or as we call it in the corporate, CSR function to it, where you have to bring somebody out. You have to spend the
Yeah, but
time.
Roger, that is maturity and experience, though. I don't think that there's everybody sitting down in those seats. And we're not just talking about drifting, we're talking about in motorsport and other aspects of life, who wants to take on that role of one, elevating the sport, some level of mentorship, some level of coaching.
Right.
When you at that point, you're just trying to win. Because in order for persons, it's to me, it's a double-edged sword. In order for people to respect that and want to be mentored by you, or want to be coached by you, or want to sit down in your car, you've had to have achieved a certain level in the first place. And if you start off at the very start by doing all of that, are you being 100% focused, laser focused on being the best?
So you can allot some time to it. So again, the majority is spent on you doing your craft, right? But what I did see in my run up, so I would have had the Frankie Budrams and all your Sheldon Bissessa, all of them that I can talk to, and they spend some time. Some of the older legendary racers that have exited and come to impart knowledge, there's a time gap. So nobody will hire to study at that point in time. So doing it while there's relevance and tapering off where you come out of performance and go into to administrative support or brotherhood.
That's what I'm saying. It's always at that twilight
Yeah,
period.
but,
the
but,
veteran
but
or
for
people.
me, it's understanding the role of athlete. There must be that part of it. Even if it's 1%, you should be willing to put yourself out there, because it's the rule. If the rule is just yourself and you're winning and that's it, then we need to redefine it. But I think defining what the full gamut of what an athlete is very important.
So we're going to take a short break. Of course, when we come back, I really want to get into also, apart from rivalry and the importance of healthy rivalry, also that need for speed, people on the road, some messages of imparting something that people can go listen. Do it in a safe place, because I know you think you can handle a car, but the reality is, if you get in a situation, you simply can't, and you may take other lives with you. So we talk about need for speed and rivalry.
This is manhood. We're talking about the need for speed and definitely safety around need for speed. So guys, taking it back, this is a very important thing, right? So the adrenaline, the euphoria, all of that is good until something happens, right? So one of the things that I've learned over a period of time is that safety. So getting into administration from the national governing body, because I do sit on the executive, is understanding how these things can affect you in a negative way if things go wrong. So first thing is environment. We do think the street is, you could do it on the street and you're king of the street or you're wild in the streets and all those kind of, inclinations. But to be quite honest, we don't have the same streets as we did 10 years ago. It makes no sense that you have an avenue, whether it not be a perfect one, but you have a racetrack. You can go there. Or you have a secure facility that you can use with permission and you take it still to the streets. For me, it's recklessness. If you didn't have the avenue, which was our case back 10, 15 years ago, completely understand. I'm not going to be the one that says I'm the Pope and you should not do this. Drag race, street drift, it happened at some point in time. But the reality is, with time and wisdom, you get experience, and by extension, you figure out what to do and not to do. Titasa has been able to have a home for motorsport. We have the Frankie Boudram Wallafield International Raceway, which we use for multiple disciplines of motorsport. For me, the street is not. It was at one point in time as a kind of taboo kind of environment where you would go there and enjoy it. But it's not worth the risk right now. Penalties, fines, imprisonment, confiscation, it just isn't worth it, where you could now exhibit your skill set.
But that is part of the excitement.
It is. And we try to mimic as much of that feel as possible, but it won't be. But again, it sounds good until either you take the life of someone or you yourself are impaired in some way, shape, or form.
So is it that the excitement is probably a cocktail, a Molotov cocktail at that, because a lot of times death or a lot of physical impairments and paralysis happens, and as you just pointed out, Roger, many a time it's not just your life you've taken, it's someone else's. Is it the breaking of the law, doing something that you know is wrong, that's the exciting part? Or is it the adrenaline of the speed? Or is it a mixture of both? Because as you said, back in the day, there wasn't a facility. So it was really waiting at 12 o'clock at night to go by traffic lights in between certain areas where they be foreshore.
It's surpassing a limit, right? That is what,
Yes.
and I will call it, because we are man, I'll call it a man thing, right?
Right.
All of us men, it don't matter what field you're in, right? You want to surpass a limit.
Yeah.
When you surpass the limit, that's when you feel whole.
Right.
If you understand what I'm saying. And when you feel whole, then right? Maybe he could reach enlightenment then,
Yeah.
and then he could start to teach, right?
Yes.
But you have to surpass a limit, wherever that limit is, whether it is academia, whether it is drag racing, whether it is Usain Bolt running, whether it is Lara breaking the record, whether it is Marshall breaking the record. I mean, I could go on and on. All of us men, we want to surpass the limit.
Yeah.
Now, the irony is, and this is where sometimes wisdom come in when you're learning from the elders or you yourself understanding your emotions, is sometimes the limit is the law.
Right.
Right? And so that's why people want to break the law because I surpassed the limit. But of course, the law in many cases is there for a reason, for safety of others, not necessarily
Yourself.
it's your safety
Right.
too.
Yeah.
So it's a
Safety of
rebellion in you
others.
as well. It's a rebellion to, I do agree with that law at this particular point. I do agree with the speed limit.
I don't know if it's agree with the law per se, but if the law contradicts or my wanting to go above the limit, wherever that is, because like you say, for me, I don't want to surpass a speed limit, so I have no problem with the law, right? With the law in terms of the rule,
Yeah.
right? But there may be other limits I want to surpass, and if I encounter the barrier there, then I will formulate a way to surpass it, and that's every man. It don't matter what it is.
Are you saying that for yourself in terms of that you don't want to pass the speed limit, or are you just talking about as a reference?
Well, I have no desire.
Right, so you're one
I'm
of
not incriminating
those,
myself in any
but you're
way.
one of those that also sit in the far right lane, yes, not passing the speed limit.
You know, we had a conversation about this that I don't like that either. That's a pet peeve of mine. I don't know what you say.
Keep left, except
Keep
well,
left except when overtaken.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
please.
But
please.
even putting all of those things into perspective, right? And we're talking about it with one manhood and with men is that every man want to pass the limit. Whether it is, I want to get 3 doctorates. Somebody might say, what sense that make? Yeah, I won already. But in that person's mind. And the beautiful thing is, and you were saying it before, and when Robert asked you about, well, you win. I don't think, and this I mean, I could even speak for myself, but I don't think when you really love something, you don't really want to win. You know? You're not looking to win. You're just looking to be better. And it I believe it have a difference between winning and being better. No, winning, I get a prize, I get a medal, people acknowledge me. But better is I keep going. Wherever I see in my mind, better and better and better. So this might be a lifelong journey. And any barrier as I meet in place of that, I want to be able to surpass that, which sometimes could lead to the recklessness, but I highlighting the aspect of things.
But in your, apart from the rivalry, I want to talk a bit about the work-life balance, because you each have substantive jobs on a regular basis, which is why your seat time is probably limited, or it's not something you would say that you can do professionally, because professionally is getting paid to do it, whereas you're paying to do the particular sport, right? And that in itself is not seen. In Trinidad and Tobago, you're just judged by what you put in front of me. Nobody gives a rat's the fact that you're not getting seat time. It's you coming to drive in front of me. If you're doing crap, I'm gonna call it out like, boy, you have to hear, boy.
Yeah,
and but you've managed to still impress on from what I can determine as a global standard. And I don't know where you may rank in terms of, or whether you may think, whether you look at whoever the best out there are, and you think, okay, I'm in the top 100, I'm in the top 50, wherever that may be. The fact is, you are at a high level and among the best, if not the 2 best, in Trinidad and Tobago. How do you see it as? Yes, it's a hobby for the most part, but is it a release? Is it a purge? Is it your escape? And what are some of the lessons, if anything, you can impart? Because even in that hobby, even in that purge, there's still a full dedication to that.
Yeah.
It's not like you're going fishing,
Right.
or you're going on a hike. This is serious commitment because you're athletes.
Right. Guys, hold on.
There was a lot in there,
Yeah.
I know, I kind of diatribe it there.
No, it's funny because, for me, the motorsport was never an escape. It was the we. Right? I never pursued it and was like, hey, if I fix the car to this level, right, or that entire work week, that crap that I dealt with, it'll feel better. No. The car was that was the be all end all, right? And I was just on my work and everything was just my toleration to go do what I actually wanted to do.
It was a means to an end.
It was a means, and because I sacrificed a lot. I sacrificed. You had all your money, all your relationship time, all your quality time, all everything, because from my perspective, what I told myself is, it's gonna pay off. I was focused. It's gonna pay off in the end. It didn't work out exactly because we had COVID and stuff like that. So it didn't exactly work out, and it has allowed me to change my perspective to now be like, okay, it's not just the be all end all, it's the feeling of it, of doing it, right? So I'm actually enjoying driving more than now competing is something different, because when we go out to compete, you usually nerves, all nerves, and as soon as you reach there, you're all nerves. Can't eat, nothing like that, right? And at the end of the day, is when the true you comes out. Literally, if you come up to a drift event, the true look at, as soon as the competition is over, that's when the true part of the drivers come out. Because we usually have, we have winners, we present at later, the track is open for half an hour. At that point is when you see the real characteristics of the characters come out. Because they have now having to take off this heavy coat of, this is what I'm supposed to be. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm supposed to do.
How powerful what he's saying there.
Right? To actually sit down and be like, yeah, this is me all in a row. Right? And as in drifting is one of the few motorsports where you can actually put your emotions into your driving style. So people who are a little more rigid and they have routines and stuff like that are a little more aggressive and stuff like that. People who have a little more rage and things probably not going for them, they're a lot more, you see it in their driving. Mm-hmm. People who are laid back and stuff like that, they actually see they're a little more relaxed. Their styles are different.
Yeah, it looks smoother.
Right. So when you're able to translate that, because when you're doing circuit racing, you can't afford to be vexed and drive, because that vexation comes out. Mm-hmm. Right? You might go in the corner and press the gas a little more too hard, wheel spin, generate heat, you lose grip, you get slower.
As the definition of anger, you're out of control.
Yeah.
In this case, your car could be seemingly out of control, but you need to be in control.
Right.
So, vex can't live in the same house.
It's not just vex. Any kind of emotion, you kind of have to dial emotions for different disciplines. But in drifting is where you can actually unleash and be who you want to be behind the wheel. Right? So usually you see people who say, but wait now, you so nice and calm at that point in time. How come when you're in this seat, you're a totally different person? Because this is a real person.
Or that one hit that car, boy. You see how he beat on that car? That for me is, you see it in the driving style. So that's the difference between myself, Devon, Hutcheon, Nicholas, Nari, whoever it is, because you're going to see what characteristics we have inside come to life at that point in time. And yes, Devon is absolutely correct. You don't really see it too much in competition because it's a kind of a tempered version, because you're focused on winning or focus on moving to the next round.
You came to compete.
Right. But if you see us drive in what you call a Matsuri or like racetrack, which is a exhibition. Track fest. You're going to see things. He go jump out the car and decide to do the rodeo thing, right? Or you might see a reverse entry or a 360 or something like that, because that's just flair style. That's the equivalent of, dressing sharp and that kind of thing in the car world.
But that's why I think every man wants to know.
Yeah.
Right? When we even talk about
Man on 100 something episodes.
talk about the need for speed, right?
Right.
Speed, I think, could be a metaphor in this case. It's
Right.
not necessarily you want to go fast, right? Speed is what equivalents to the feeling of being alive, the
Yes.
feeling of wholeness, like what I said before, the
Right.
feeling like what you said about I am now me, right? I am not bound, using your words, Devon, bound by any competition. Using your words, you said, I am not tempered anymore.
Yeah.
Right? I just want to be myself. So if men live in a life where, or most of the life where it's not themselves, when they get the smallest opportunity, that is why sometimes it comes out in a way that is untempered and could be reckless. So even listening to you all and those listening, those viewing also, is that a time to unleash is important for all men. And I mean, even men from little boys, because you could see when they're in the classroom too much,
Yeah.
right? As soon as, not
Yeah.
even lunchtime,
Yeah.
recess time, when it's 15, 10 minutes,
It's like going crazy.
Losing
but
mind.
we would say crazy, but it's really, I am now able to be myself.
Self,
Right.
Yeah. Good stuff.
A couple things, because we are almost near closing. When you ever get chain up? Like,
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we see
you-
something there. That's our chain up.
Not only that, we chain up each other.
No, but I talk about outside the track.
Yeah.
Are you at that level where you're now more mature? And when I say mature, in terms of you have nothing to prove in that environment to somebody else, but somebody pull up by the traffic light.
Never.
Oh.
We are still very juvenile. No, I'm not.
I'm glad you're honest.
No,
I'm glad you're
it
honest.
is
you
the
know?
truth. It is the
In
truth.
our heads, it's like, yeah, but it's just, I would say, a more mature head prevails, and you'll just wait until.
Sometimes.
Yeah, no,
Sometimes,
and
yeah.
you'll just wait until you'll just look around and be like, okay, now's the time. Right?
You all would hear this argument. My daddy car faster than your daddy, right? No, it ain't no daddy, it's us, right? So you'll always have that. Even if you're in traffic, somebody trying to inch up faster than the next
And
person.
especially if they recognize it, they expect it. It's like when you meet a comedian,
Yeah.
you expect him to be funny.
Yeah.
And you want a joke. So if
But-
somebody, they want to see something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a bad trait, but I do think there's always somebody to overdo, right? And that for me is tempered. So case in point, I am in the point where you do have structure, but you have a point to release and rebalance. Versus you have all this rebalancing time and you're off. So
Yeah.
for me, that there's always a real balance versus being extremely to one side or the next, and that creates problems both ways because you want to be free and unencumbered and you don't realize that you have responsibilities. That for me is, having that mix in between one and the next.
Talk to me a bit about the rivalry. That, I mean, is a healthy rivalry. We're not talking about one that results in death or negativity or embarrassment. There's a brotherhood.
Yes, there is. I mean,
Tell me how that pushes you and adds
I'll
value.
go first and I'll let Dev chime in after. I think that for most part, the majority of us really use that rivalry to kind of lily pad on to the next point. But there's sometimes, and it could be within ourselves as well too, and I'm speaking to the guys, take your ego out of it now. Because if you go down that ego road with motorsport, you will break it. So take your ego out of it. Let's compete. It's not about breaking anybody down, but it's really about putting focus. You will get your chance to be at the top of the podium at some point in time, but don't bring somebody down to put yourself on top. It doesn't work like that, at least in my view.
I agree with you. And on some episodes back, we spoke about even the history, right? The history of Olympics, right? The history of Olympics was different nations or different tribes competing against each other. And whoever is the best would now teach everybody else how to do it.
Right.
So whether it was running, jumping, wherever it is.
Right.
And I believe that is important. Somebody once say, well, if I teach you, then you might be better than me. But that's fine, and I'm using even what you said, because now that you're better than me, it gave me now the opportunity to even be better now. And when you really love something, whatever that thing is that I want to be better in it. So if somebody come and show me it have a better way, I happy, I glad. So now it have something new for me to surpass, something new heights for me. And then somebody else come in. So I explain in that way because it could be an exciting thing,
But like you use the to use your analogy with the Olympics, but this was the World Championships when Usain Bolt did 9.58, and people have always asked, I wonder what would have happened if he didn't slow down.
Right.
And the truth is, if someone was right behind him, he would have run faster. So
Yeah.
in life, someone being better than you, as you said, when Devon does something, you go, hey, I need to go back to the drawing board. I need to know to beat that, and then vice versa. It keeps happening, and that's how you raise each other, raise each other's standard, and ultimately raise the level of the sport and give the fans a show. What's your thoughts on the rivalry?
Right. Well, going back to what I was saying, we are the performers, and the track is the stage, and if we are able to put on a better show, that's what the people come to invest in. As with regards to competitive rivalry, I think is a necessity, because there's no. When we started off, you were all doing donuts or whatever, right? If somebody didn't come and do figure eights, we'll still be doing donuts, right? And if I didn't have hey, I can't do that. Let me try and see if I could do that, and I get through, then I wouldn't have advanced. You can't, as you say earlier, you can't have your ceiling. You can't. It must be a moving goalpost, right? Your goals must be a moving goalpost. You can't have your ceiling and say, well, that's it there. Else you won't progress. And that's just my 2 cents about it. Now, with regards to how the entire motorsport industry moves, as Roger said earlier, ego is a big thing. Men's ego locally, and this is what I've noticed, men's ego is a big issue. Yes, it allows us to put ourselves out there and be like, and that's cool. You have your drives and stuff like that. That ego allows us to have that. At the same time, sometimes it could also work against us, because now it becomes, I better than that, or I deserve this, or I deserve that. So you kind of alienate your own stance in your community, or your stance in society when you look at it, because you're now thinking you're better than these people. You deserve this,
Which is kind of what you were talking about earlier. That cockiness, that arrogance, that instead of saying, recognizing you've gone from good, average to good to great at something, you're now looking at yourself as better than, as you said, and that means you're looking down on someone else.
Yeah. Right.
And therefore you're not going to want to elevate someone, because you now think in a negative environment. Because ego is not a bad thing, as you pointed out. There's ego and there's heart. It is when the ego, the negative aspects of moving in that space of pushing forward, because that's what ego does.
Right, yeah.
It just drives you. It's your driver. And it's when you now tap into the negative fuel, for if we use that term, is when the output is only going to be one of disaster for everyone, because nobody's going to want to be around you. You've not inspired anybody. Nobody will want to emulate that.
Correct.
And if they do, it's not going to be positive. And all of these factors are simply one that I mean, that goes into negative rivalry.
From listening to y'all and just thinking about
I kind of went off track there. That's why I looked in. I was like, I kind of get lost in my own thoughts. I admit it. You're kind of talking, you over talk, and you go off track. And I'm not a drifter, so I can't control it back. So I just kind of went, all right, over to you, Hansi.
Yeah.
Good one. So what you always saying, and what I observe about you also, and even knowing some of the history, like it is ironic that you say drifting started in Japan, right? And doing some history on the word rival, right? The word rival, it was something that Japanese culture practiced, because a rival actually wasn't a bad thing. A rival was a good thing. It was good to have a rival. A rival is somebody who meets you at the heights of where you are, and you all keep trying to make each other better. Right. And I realized the word kind of corrupted now in the present day, but because there's a difference between a rival and an enemy.
Yes.
Right?
I'm not gonna say
So you all are not enemies. You all are rivals. Right? But ego, right? Ego most times come from fear. And you had mentioned it before. When you say now, I's the best, I's the champion, now he has something to defend, he has something to prove, which now is a fear of not being perceived as whatever it is now. So if you're an ego could push you, fear could push you, But of course, what it leads to would be something that is corrupted, would be disastrous, could be reckless. But if it's love, and it's ironic, just listening to you all, when people talk about I love something and I put in love in something instead, many times when we think love, we just always think romantic love many times. But the love of the sport, the love of the surpassing limits, the love of academia.
I'm glad you said person because you kind of stuttered it.
I get that from me. I see
there was something else that
is he
had a
off
bleep
track
out there,
there, right?
Love of okay.
Wow.
Right,
Wow.
but the love, and when even, and I'm sure you notice, Robert, listening to you speak about it, you could tell all you're in love with it now. If you understand what I'm saying, and I'm using that deliberately because sometimes when somebody in love with their career, in love with people, they don't understand now, right? And they just call it you mad or what, right?
Yeah.
But when you love something, it's not about anymore who better or who worse. I acknowledge, hey, Devon do something better than me or different than me. Hey, Roger do something different or better than me. But now I want to be better. Not that I hate that man or I carry to put you out of commission.
But
So
you
I
want
just
everybody. That's the whole thing. You want
and that's where the love does come in. So I think that's really important.
But you said it at the start. You said what one of the things that you all share in common is the fact that you all love cars.
Yes.
And it's that love that also then
I think any motorsport, true motorsport, spouse will know he or she get home from a car. Literally, because his car first. Oh God, you only buy the car and the car. Yeah, car first.
It's part and parcel of the lifestyle.
So we're about to go into closing thoughts. What's your closing thoughts to?
So I wanna say something with regards to the outlet. So we love motorsport, we love cars, we love golf, anything like that. But I do think the engineering is really in the person themselves, right? To make sure and want to do the best that you can. I don't care if you just start at McDonald's or KFC, try to do it the best. Because for me, when I think about my career, when I think about motorsport or anything I got involved in, I was not a circuit racer, but I jumped into time attack and was successful at it. Yes, the skill set had a part to play, but I wanted to be good at it. So for me, any task that I take up, whether it be minuscule or major, if my intention that it is something that I want to achieve the best outcome of, then I think it will give me a better result versus thinking it's our work. If we think that everything is our work, then therefore you're gonna attract that energy and you're gonna have a dead end, right? Because you're coming back to the same work over and over and over. And again, I started from, way back cleaning dog kennels for money. Then I was a runner at the Arima racetrack to working yourself up. But at any point in time, even if you're seeing about dogs, you want to make sure that you allow yourself to do the best job. And I think we're missing that from the combination because we want the end result. The end result is give me the money, give me the cash, give me the moolah, and not really how am I going to get it? How am I going to show people that I have a structure in me that allows them to give me the opportunity?
Devon?
That's a hard one to follow because it
He's
was
your
so much.
rival.
Huh?
He's your rival for it.
It was so much. It's so much. No, I'm saying he touched a lot into what he was into. He touched into so many different aspects. I would say this, however, as time is not motorsport and everything. Well, on the whole, is not only about winning. It's not because you win today. It guarantees you that you're on top. Because I have seen people who have lost and they are the favorites. They are still the top of the pile. And I've seen people who have won and still been despised. So I think of that perspective, I would say this to the younger ones. It's just not everything is about winning. Enjoy the process.
Yes.
Go into, and there's something that I have learned to do. People like you to reach out, and being at the pointier end of the drifting scale, right? Because yes, we are considered very good, right? In our hearts, it's still not good enough. We are still pursuing it. We have a respect for what we can do, and we respect that people respect that, right? And we are so grateful for it. But it's something that I've noticed that people are also very tentative to say certain things to us because they think, oh, you're too high and mighty. And it's something that I've tried to do is even on competition days, you'll see me in the stands sitting down just randomly in the stands or greeting different teams. People, they sharpen their knives for certain reasons. And you don't know if a knife is directed towards you. Simply because maybe you bypass somebody or you didn't talk to them how they like it. Everybody has things going on. And I would say life is not really that serious because none of us are getting out of it alive.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. What you all help me understand is sometimes a man's love is misunderstood now, right? It's the way a man is loved. And again, not talking about romantic, right? Because the love for what you're doing, the love for life, the love that you put into things, and even the love between men as friends now, right? Is that a rivalry is what you say, I have love for my brother. And putting it in that way helped me understand too, and even people view now there how men think and the differences, and to not misunderstand it and mislabel it. And then the quote, there's a quote, more haste, less speed, right? Now, you all help me understand it a little better because my understanding, speed, I think even the dictionary meaning, speed is precise movements towards an action that you end up reaching it quicker, right? It's precise movements. And haste is more of aggression and you're rushing and it will be reckless. So if you have more haste, you'll end up being less speed. So if you're rushing, the ego, the recklessness, things that we talk about, you wouldn't reach anyway, right? It's like sometimes you see a man race past you and then both of them pull up at the light at the same time. So based on what you all shared and the sport, precision is important. And now if I was to put it general, if you're into academics, if you're into another sporting arena, if you're into painting, if you're into singing, wherever it is, if you're precise about it, and you love it, but you're precise, you'll reach where you want to reach quicker than if you just rush things.
Yeah, agree with that.
I was gonna be a little tongue in cheek with my brother here, and I was gonna say speed it up. We had a close, right? But to be a bit corny, and I don't want to drift off topic.
Wow.
You're on a roll, boy.
On a roll. To speak on what a couple of you said. First off, I enjoy being in this seat. You talk about love of something. I enjoy being in this seat, and it's purely because I get to sit here and take in the experience, the knowledge that's shared by all of you who come on a weekly basis, and it really is a privilege that I recognize and a blessing to just be able to absorb the life experiences, without being able to do the skill certainly, but to have that respect and be a fan. I'm a fan of everyone that comes onto this show and in life that I meet, because you're never too old to learn. They say you can't teach a dog, old dog new tricks. That's not true. And the fact that I'm blessed to continue to learn and be part of and share these stories is one that I certainly don't take lightly. And so again, I share your hand by saying thanks for taking the time, for coming, for opening up for the listeners, the viewers, in sharing that knowledge. And to also say to everyone that a winner is simply a loser who tried one more time. So it's not always about winning, it's about that journey, but to understand that yes, it is your goal to become the best, and not necessarily the best isn't for everyone, but you can be your best self.
Yes.
And as long as you're your best self, that might mean you're the world champion, or it might simply mean you've self-actualized and become the best that you can be. And there's nothing wrong with that, and that in itself deserves a round of applause. And we said it here when we talk about what we do in life and what we put out. Always remember, how you do anything is how you do everything. And I want to end with a quote. I quote Banton, right? So, to say, as we speak about rivalry, healthy rivalry is a powerful motivator that pushes individuals to go beyond their limits, fostering innovation, resilience, and personal growth without resorting to destructive behavior. We're talking here about positive rivalry, and I hope more people take on the meaning where it comes from, the origin, which is, like you said, in Japan, the difference between a rival and an enemy. So therefore, truly, rivalry can't be negative or shouldn't be. So keep that in mind, keep that as the focus. The need for speed, please drive safely on the road. Keep left keep left except when overtaken. Nothing wrong in keeping to the speed limit, which you should, but if I want to push at 100 and you looking to push at 80, swing to the left. But anyway, that's a whole pet peeve. I try to bring it up every other time. But always a pleasure, gentlemen.
Yeah, man.
Really, really another learning curve here today. I'm going to go back and look at this episode. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the track and, being wowed, as I always do. So Johanse, Devon, Roger, this was Need for Speed. We're talking also about rivalry, positive, competitive.
Manhood, brought to you in part by Lucozade and Solomon's Bespoke.